Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with theater's biggest names. I'm your host, Otis Williams.
And I'm Diana Ross.
And today we spoke with Jawan Jackson. Oh my goodness, this dude, his voice.
I love it so much.
It is down there. He is one of the few basses that is in Broadway.
Incredible. We talk about in the episode that there's very few like true basses on Broadway, so that they all find each other and like will flock to each other and talk about where do you get your voice lessons? How do you do this and all that? And it's so cool. I love it.
I thought it was fascinating when he said it when he was auditioning for Motown. He was in Detroit, still living in Detroit when he was auditioning for Motown, got offered the part and was like, when do we start touring? Did not know he was auditioning for a Broadway show and then made his Broadway debut.
That's fantastic though. That's just cool. Like, you're just doing your thing. But that also shows his character of he puts his effort into everything no matter what. Like, he's going to try his best. And I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. He was saying, too, that he went from Detroit straight to New York to start the production of Motown and then was in it the entire run for 2.5 years and then got out. And again, he's one of these other actors we've talked to that's like, all right, New York, here I am, and had a huge reality check because all of a sudden he has no job and he's never filed for unemployment before. Mm-hmm. And so what does he do? And he gets a call center. He gets a job in a call center for Broadway.com of all places.
In which people only want to talk to him because of his voice. Yeah. He's someone who he just keeps going. He talks about he creates new dreams and he just keeps going. But you've seen the show, right?
Yeah.
He is so infectious and so wonderful. I've seen it 3 times now, and every time I'm just like, I just can't look away. That smile, you can see it from all the way in the back.
Oh, yeah.
He is one of a kind, and I really, really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, me too. So before we get into this episode, please go to ttp.fm/Patreon to show your support. And for those of you on the $5 tier or higher, you got to know that we were going to interview Jawan today and got to ask some questions that we included in the episode. So please help us keep the lights on. It is all much appreciated. Find us on social, theater_podcast. And now, everyone, please enjoy this episode with Jawan Jackson.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
My guest today is an actor, singer, radio personality, and voiceover artist. He made his Broadway debut in 2013's Motown the Musical and is now starring as Melvin Franklin in Ain't Too Proud. Jawan Jackson, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
No, that's not your normal voice. That's your radio voice.
That's my radio voice. But, I actually pitch my speaking voice higher so people can understand me because I normally want to just talk here.
This is your normal range.
This is just normal Jawan when I'm chilling, like at home and don't feel like talking. But here is, more friendly, welcoming Jawan. It draws you in more and it makes it more interesting. But I literally love to live down here. Love to live down there.
But like at a loud party and stuff, that's a frequency that doesn't carry very well.
And I actually get a kick out of like whispering in people's ears in parties because I'm just like, you're going to hear me because I'm not going to yell over it and I'm not going to throw my voice out. So I'm always in somebody's ear at a party, especially loud parties.
So you're like, hey.
I'm like, and I talk just like this. I'm like, because deeper tones you can hear, versus like someone screaming in your ear. You're like, wait. But,
well,
they're there.
All right, that's doing a little something for me. All right. Okay, so let's get back to our standard stuff here. Normally, we goof around and we do like ASMR on this. We're like,
I always want to do one of those. Yes.
The ASMR always gets cut. Like the listeners don't normally hear it, but we're like, let's drink some water. Yeah, we'll keep this one.
Chick-fil-A ice. So good.
All right, so tell me, you grew up in Detroit.
Yes, born and raised.
Born and raised in Detroit. So your Broadway career has been all around Motown.
Just through and through Motown. I feel like Detroit has blessed me with a gift of, spreading the art to the world. about my city. And so I've just been blessed, to be able to represent in such a way in both the shows I've done now, being the only Detroiter in the cast, in both instances that, was representing Detroit.
And you played Melvin Franklin in both shows.
Both times.
So you're the
times.
go-to Melvin Franklin.
Listen,
for the temps.
that's what I wanted to, I set out to be. I said I wanted to be the Broadway's bass. So whatever that means, if it's Melvin, if it's whatever, like I want to be the go-to, period.
Are there a lot of other like bass people like this? Because I mean, you hear like Patrick from Hadestown. He lives down there too. But like other than you and him, I couldn't name anybody else.
There's a couple. Dwayne Cooper is another one. Right now, he sings with the Doo-Wop Project, and there's a couple other. I mean, because there are not many basses. Like when I do meet another bass, we flock to each other. Oh, who you go to? Who's your voice teacher? Where you been at? Like, how long you in the city for? And then, a lot of them are in, opera. And there's another guy named Brandon who's a monster bass. He's a monster. And he's just like, and he's so big and fit. He looks like a supermodel and a bodybuilder all at the same time. But his voice is like really, really beautiful. Really beautiful.
You get all the basses in a room and just like, all you got to do is hum and the walls start rattling.
Listen, I would love to do that one day. I just we need to have a cabaret, just like all the basses, I think it'd be interesting.
I need to be a songwriter. All right, you hear that, songwriters? Write a couple acapella arrangements for all basses.
Come on. You can do it. You can do it.
All right. So Detroit, you got, how did you get into music? How did you get into singing and performing? Like, tell me about that whole history.
Yeah, so singing has been a part of my life, all my life. I'm a pastor's kid. My grandfather's a pastor, was a preacher. My cousin's a preacher. And so I've always grew up in a church. Gospel is, in my bones. And, from there, I kind of, branched out to, the R&Bs and the jazz. And my grandmother, she loved blues. And so, I grew up on that. And so, like, I remember the first time I was watching the 1986 Soul Train Awards. And that year, and I was born in 87. And so she had it recorded on VHS. And I was just like, I guess she had put it in. I forget at the time how old I was, but I found these tapes. And I watched it, and, Whitney Houston was on it, and Dionne Warwick, and Luther Vandross, and Stevie Wonder, and, all these, like, great singers that we now know today, And that was Whitney Houston's actual, like, first appearance of her singing her single, You Give Good Love.
Really?
Uh-huh. And I watched it, and I memorized that tape over and over again. The commercials included. And, that I just fell in love with like just their voices, and them singing, That's What Friends Are For with Luther Vandross, Whitney Houston, Dionne Warwick, and Stevie Wonder, just them powerhouse singers just singing that song. And then at the end, it was this gospel tribute with all of the major gospel artists, and you had Shirley Caesar and Vanessa Bell Armstrong, my two favorite female gospel singers. And so I would play that over and over and over and over and over again. And then eventually I started singing back, and then I started singing, and my parents like creep around the room. It was like, oh, this boy is singing. Let's do something with him. And so, they put me in a choir. And
how old were you right now?
Right now?
Oh, in the story.
At that time, I was like 8 or 9.
Okay.
And then from there, they started putting me in like talent shows. And then my very first talent show song was, and I shouldn't have been singing it at that age, but it was Sleeping in My Bed by Drew Hill. I got this feeling and I just can't turn it loose. I'm like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have been singing that song.
That is not age appropriate.
But I was in day camp and I sang that song at the talent show for the first time. And then, from there on, it was just like, we on and popping, and like the girls is like crazy, and everybody, the adults is like, oh boy, they throwing money at me, and so it was a whole thing. And so, needless to say, growing up in grade school, I became the guy who was singing, and that was like my known to. So I used to try to have this persona where, and I'm embarrassed to say it now, and I hope the picture never like circulates and finds itself. But I permed my hair. because I used to love waves. I had waves short hair. I permed my hair, and then I put gel to slick it down so when the sun hit my hair, it shined. It looked crazy. It looked crazy, but that was the style, and I just I thought I wanted to be an R&B singer.
It's like mid-90s.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
90s,
oh, yeah.
the Tevin Campbells and all those groups. And Can We Talk was another song that I would sing too. It's like I'm singing all those high songs, and then my voice dropped.
Oh, yeah.
Because then there's that part.
Because there was and then you're down there again. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you were singing all the Motown. So not coming from Detroit, I came from Florida and then North Carolina, like kind of literally as far away as you get from Detroit in the U.S. Well, I guess I could have been on the West Coast, but who counts that? Just kidding, West Coast. Trying to dig myself out of a hole and I'm making it worse.
It's okay. I got your back.
Yeah.
He's a good person.
Thank you. Yeah. So I grew up like in the Bible Belt, and we didn't have a lot of music. Like it's still very, I gotta say, like a Republican kind of state, and gospel soul music was not well accepted. Because there's a lot of Confederate flags still flying there today, which is not, I'm not proud of. So like growing up, your childhood, was the Motown music, was that was just normal? That was just what was on the radio? Like,
Absolutely.
the roots of the city?
Absolutely. I literally grew up with every genre in my household and listened to it on the radio. And because I went to a school that wasn't predominantly Black. I had it was like a melting pot of races and nationalities. And so because of that, I was exposed to so many different, genres of music through my friends. I had Arabic friends, I had Chinese friends, I had Japanese friends, I had, every single, so they, we would bounce off each other and like, and then on the radio, Motown was just a thing. It was, a thing. And like, the Motown artists would be coming to our schools, like Anita Baker, her son was, playing in, we was rivaling high schools, and she would come and she'd be sitting in the audience, just like, and so I grew up with all these like legends, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, like of the Vandellas. She was my dancing partner. Like we would dance, ballroom dance, and
wow,
we'd see each other at parties and just like cut a rug, with each other. And so it kind of was normal. Because my family also knew and grew up with these people because they were, they all went to school together. They were hometown heroes, our hometown heroes. And so, that's just through and through what my life was. And so I never I couldn't think of anything else outside of not having the music I grew up in or not listening to this music.
Mm-hmm. So music was a part of you. I mean, your childhood, it was just part of your everyday, which I think, kids should have in some form or another. But then, high school comes. When did you know you wanted to get into theater? And did you ever think you'd be performing, or were you just like, I'm going to go and
I gave it a shot in the 8th grade, which was my first production, like theater production, and that was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And that was right as I was making the transition from, I say tenor to bass, baritone. And so, I got a part in the ensemble, and I got my first solo line. I got to sing my first solo line in that production. And then, that was kind of like the bug, because my cousin at the time, who was in high school, she was in like an 11th, 12th grade. My very first production watching was Hello, Dolly. And she was, the girlfriend. And so, that was I was kind of like, wow, like, they're up there singing, they're dancing. So just to see, I was like, I want to do something like that. And so that's why I got into, Joseph. And then the next one, I think the next year was like Music Man, the next show I did. And then I did another one, A Fiddler on the Roof. And so I did those 3 productions throughout my high school career. And, but I was also singing in a gospel choir and then singing in the school choir. And I was also in marching band. And I was also like doing so many other things. Like I wanted to do everything. I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly, but I knew music was always been my through line.
So then you went to Eastern Michigan University. And what'd you get your degree in?
I got my degree in communication theater arts with a minor in biology.
That's different.
I went to school for biochemistry.
Really?
Because I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. I wanted to, I wanted to train dolphins and work at SeaWorld because I thought I had to go to college in order to do that. And so I set out and marked my career to become a dolphin trainer because I loved the Animal Planet. I loved to watch the Animal Planet. I loved, I was that kid. And I, went to school and then I ended up getting an internship working for Disney. And so that took me to Florida, and I worked there for a year as a manager, housekeeping manager, for Port Orleans Resort. And then while I was there, I would volunteer. And then I got in the water with sharks, thinking that okay, this is what I want to do, and helping out wildlife and doing that. And I got in the water, I was like, yeah, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. Get me out of here. And I promise, it was I said a prayer in the water. I was like, Lord, if you get me out of here, I'll never come back to it again. I promise I won't. And it was just like a movie. A rock appeared and I swam over to the rock and I was like, yeah, y'all come get me. I'm not getting back in the water. And
since it wasn't in a cage, you were just out in the open
they were
water.
Just swimming all around me. Like it was nobody's business. I was like, I don't care how docile they are. That they're wild, And then what's his name? Crocodile Hunter had just gotten killed probably 2 years prior.
Steve Irwin.
Yeah. Well, by that stingray, I was like, that's not about to be my story. I got a lot, in between my dash still to live. No.
Well, so then your career began as a radio personality. You came back, I guess, from Florida.
Yeah. So I came back and then not knowing what I really wanted to do, I was like, but that wasn't it. And so I started taking electives, and then one of the electives was an improv class. And so from that improv class, I sparked up a relationship with my now, still mentor friend, Professor Decky Alexander. And, she just we took the class and she made me fall in love with acting. And she was like, you have a great voice. You have a great speaking voice. You have a great presence. She was like, there's an audition coming up, a show coming up, and I think you'll be perfect for it. And, a part of it is for the narrator. You should audition. And I went in, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I went on, auditioned, and got the part. And then that was my first production in college, was called Bud Not Buddy. The book that was written by Christopher Paul Curtis. And I played the narrator, and I played this character called Steady Eddie. And so he was one of the band members, and he was the jokester. I felt like I've been playing the jokester. It's been I don't know where these comedic chops came from. I promise you, I do not know. Maybe it came from my cousins, because me and my cousins are always capping on each other and playing the dozens. And so maybe that, but so he was a comedic role. And then the narrator was, very cool and subdued, just draws in the audience. Listen to my voice. And then this happened. And now we going back to Steady Eddie. It's just one of those things. It's so I did that. And then I got the bug. That's when I got the bug. And then I started doing that. Decky would take me over to she's like, okay, well, these theater troupes, are doing something. You should join this. Or we're doing something for the teachers, for a presentation for the whole university. Come write pieces with us and help us set up this formula and then show it to the faculty to train them. And so then I started doing that. And then working for University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so what we would do is it was an all improv course. And so we have 6, 7 actors in a room for a week. And then we're putting together simulation things of what would happen in the classroom for these medical professors. And then we'll have the teachers will come in and then they'll ask us questions and we'll in character answer them, based on the information and the stuff that we were given. And so that's what kind of got me building up my improvisational skills and everything. Cause those teachers would ask real questions. We were conflicting for real. Just well, why would you, take his paper and then go, it was just crazy stuff. I was just wow, okay, cool. Let's roll with the punches.
Did you just go in with your backstory? You made up a whole student
I had
persona?
backstories.
Yeah.
I had, characters and family members. I got everything. I came prepared.
And okay, so how did you get onto Detroit's Hot 107.5? That was top radio station back then, or still
That
is?
was a top radio station. And now that's an interesting story too. I was coming home from church and I had just graduated from college And I was looking for a job. I was like, Lord, I need a job. And I was riding on the freeway, and the guy says, hey, I'm looking for interns, to be a part of my show. If you're interested, send me your resume, call me at this number, blah, 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 and I'm like, okay, perfect. This is like, I always wanted to be on the radio, get into that. And then sent it in, met with him, and the meeting went really, really well. Like, and he gave it to me right on the spot. And he was like, you know what? I normally don't hire men. I just don't work with men well because they're lazy. They don't do well. He was like, but it's something about you that I feel like I'm going to be okay. And so I started working with this show called The Carman Show. And that was an automotive talk show. And then so I started bumping around different stations in Detroit. So we were on Hot 107.5, we were on 102.7, we were on all these stations like all over. And it basically was like, I became the social media guy. The current events, when Twitter started jumping off, really, was popping. Instagram wasn't a thing then, it was just like starting. And then from there, we turned that into a TV show. So it went from Carman the radio show to Carman the TV show. And my job duties became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then from that opportunity, I just learned so many things and so much stuff from them.
Were you on air, or were you like producing and doing stuff?
I was doing everything.
Really?
I was producing. I was on air. I was like running errands. I was getting coffees. I was like, he had me doing everything. He was just throwing stuff at me to see how much I can handle. And at every feat, I was like, I'm determined because this is what I wanted to do, And I just think that, especially in the industry, and I learned this earlier on, is that part of where I am today is because I had sold into myself and sold into other people. And so I knew that if I poured into him as just into his business, into his dream, that my return would come, and it ended up working out that way. And so that's why I always tell anybody who's looking to get in the industry, I'm like, you have to serve, and you have to, you're gonna be doing it for free, because I wasn't getting paid. By the way, I was not getting paid for that job, and he would give me like incentives and stuff, but it wasn't like an hourly, weekly check, And so I had to really just like make it work. But I tell everybody, serve first, because once you get where you need to be, you're gonna appreciate it more, and you'll know what it feels like to work hard and to have it.
You got perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you get perspective because you once you get it, you don't take it for granted.
Absolutely, and it helps you learn from other folks' mistakes.
Yes.
So you think you're doing something that's meaningless, but it's actually preparing you and teaching you. And so that was the biggest thing that I learned, from helping others.
Do you have a DJ name or an on-air name?
No, I couldn't find a name at the time. And I was searching, I was looking for one, looking. And I was like, I'm going to change my name. I'm going to do something. And I was like, and it just, Jawan just stuck. I was like, just be yourself. Just be yourself.
Well, it seemed to work. Give me one of your deep commercial break. Good, heading into commercial break goodness.
So you're listening to Hot 107.5 here in Detroit's hot radio station. That's one of my, commercials.
Jen and Riley back here looking at us like, what? But your publicist, you got to hear this with the headphones on. This makes a difference. After we're done, we'll have him speaking in the mic for the two of you. Because it like reverberates in the headphones here. Oh, it's so nice. Gives me the shivers. It's good. Okay, so graduation. You were saying, you were doing the program to help develop high school students who also had a passion for pursuing a career in acting in the arts. And is that the improv thing you were telling me about, or is that something different?
Yeah, so that was something completely different. So after I was doing like a million and one things because I was just goal driven, and I was like, I don't want to be here in Detroit any longer. I want to be famous. And so whatever I got to do to become a hometown like celebrity or whatever I need to do it. And so I was teaching during the week, and I was teaching theater to high schoolers and middle schoolers. So what we would do was we would go into these high schools, in the Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor area who didn't have kind of like a theater program, a strong theater program, go in there, teach them, theater, and I'll leave and go to the next school and do the same thing. And then it became an after school program. And so they would be getting incentives, from area high schoolers to work with college students, partnering with college students in order to, and then they end up getting like a college credit at the end, so it's incentive, to further educate and to help the school systems out. And so I was doing that and I was loving it. And then I was doing the radio TV stuff on the weekends, also going to church and doing church events. I was doing midnight musicals. I was hosting the concerts. I was hosting like everything. And I was like starting to make a name for myself. And then I ended up I left the Carman show and I joined this show called On the Go with Tiffany Patton, which was kind of like a more on like in your face, like remote. We were interviewing celebrities. We go to a concert series. So I got to interview Music Soul Child and who else I interviewed? Maya Angelou was one of them. And
really?
It was so many people that I got to like a chance to talk to and speak to. And that became a thing. And I was one of 3 co-hosts there. And that actually, was a journey and a hard lesson, to take down, because also I was doing that for free too. And that was another thing, like trying to sacrifice what you wanted to do for somebody else's dream. And, I love her to death. And, but the story is like really, really real. What ended up making me like try to work on my own stuff is because like, with radio shows and co-hosts and when things happen, like, flyers would come out and we started the show as 3. And so, before the show had even like, gave birth to its first episode, we had meetings, collectively, and it was like, okay, you're going to be a co-host, you're going to be a co-host, I'm going to be a co-host, and this is how we're going to run it. And so the flyers ended up coming out and she had pictures of herself and another guy on there. And so I was like, I looked at her, I was like, hey, I'm not on the flyer. I thought I was a co-host, with y'all. She's like, you are? She was like, but don't nobody know who you are. So, we have the bigger name. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so that was that was like a wake-up call for me. So I felt it was my sound like, okay, get your stuff together. And so from there, I was like, I'm going to serve in this position and give my best, but I am like now checked out and done because now I'm working on myself and on my stuff. And so from there, Sparkle came to the city, Whitney Houston's last movie. And then I sent in for background work for that, got that, and then started doing stuff on that set and was working on that, was in that movie. And that was kind of like my first professional TV movie gig. And that led to...
You met Whitney, yeah?
Yes, I met Whitney.
Yeah.
Not only did I meet with her, I like got to sit in on like a singing lesson with her and Jordan Sparks. Like between takes, Whitney was teaching Jordan Sparks how to sing I Will Always Love You. It's crazy.
Oh man, I wish you had cell phones.
Listen, I was trying to be like, just stickler to the rules. Everybody else snapping pictures. And I'm like, shoot, I ain't bring my phone, And it was crazy. Like that whole set just in general was just so great and so peaceful. Like all the interviews that people are saying, going around about like Whitney, people saying like Whitney was like a joy to be around on set. She really, truly was. She came on set. They told us specifically, do not look the actors in the eye. Do not say nothing to them. Do not ask to take pictures. Don't ask for autograph. Don't have a conversation. Don't, this is what like the people who were running like the extras and everything was doing. And as soon as Whitney got on set, she walked up to me and was like, good morning. And I was like,
Who,
me? She was like, yes, you. Good morning. I was like, good morning. And so it was just, she was like, how you doing? I was like, I'm well, Miss Houston. Like, I love you. And then I just met. I was like, I love you so much. And I was like, turned into a fanboy. But then I was like, get it together, Jawan, get it together. And I can see like the ADs and everybody like cutting us eyes. So it was like, she spoke to me. I ain't speak to her. Like, what you gonna tell me to tell Whitney Houston no? Don't say nothing to her? No, I'm not. But it was great. And Jordan was so great. Like, she was really, really sweet. Derek, Luke, just working with that, that whole cast. Who else was on there? Tika Sumpter, who is beautiful in person. She was like my first crush. Like, I was like, I've never seen a girl so pretty in my life. And then I get here to entertainment. I'm like, oh, everybody's pretty. Got it. Everybody's pretty.
You never forget your first.
You never forget your first. And she
No.
was a good first.
Okay, so then how did you get to New York then?
So I got to New York is, every day I would search for auditions. Like,
Still in Detroit.
yeah, still in Detroit, still, working, still teaching, still doing radio, like gigging. But every day religiously before I went out to work, I would get up in the morning and I would search for auditions that was like either local or, out of town that I could do that kind of flowed with my job schedule. And at the time I was doing this show called The Wiz of Motown. And I don't know why or how, but my uncle, had the newspaper, and I just was like, well, let me just read the newspaper, bored. And in the classifieds, random place, there's an audition saying, hey, audition for Motown the Musical, come in. And if you're interested, email this, whatever. And so found it. It was like little. And I sent the email, got a response back, and auditioned in Detroit at a school at the Marvin Winans Academy. And at the time, I was also doing a reunion concert for my college choir. So the Wiz of Motown college choir reunion, I was like, ooh, how am I going to do it? That was a Saturday morning. I'll never forget it. It was a Saturday morning. I went in early. I was like the 10th person there. Went in, auditioned. I sang Papa Was a Rolling Stone. That was the first time I had to bring sheet music and do all that because I didn't know. I didn't have a headshot. So what I did was I went in my bathroom in my curtain and I took a selfie in my suit. I had a black suit on, white shirt, black tie, and just took a selfie and then printed it out and then, submitted it. And so a week later, they sent me an email. It was like, okay, we want you to record, you singing this. And so I was in rehearsals at the time. And so after rehearsal, my friends we set up the camera, we did the sides, and then I had to sing the line in Ball of Confusion, and the band played on. And they wanted me to hit a low C because they were looking for the bass or whatever. And so I did that, and I was like, I'm going to sit in. I feel funky about it. I probably won't get it, whatever. A week later, they emailed me again and said, hey, it's another audition. We want you to audition at the Motown Museum. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And at that time, I was at another audition trying to become a part of this touring company with the gospel singer Jackie Clark Chisholm, who's in the infamous, famous Clark sisters. And so she was starting a choir and a theater thing or whatever. And so went there, and right after there, I went to the Motown audition, and I auditioned, and it was in the room, Charles Randolph Wright, which was our director, Brandon Victor Dixon, and Valicia LeKay, who was our Barry and Diana. And it was raining, and they looked like they were tired, like they had just gotten in. And I remember Brandon and Valicia huddled in the corner, asleep, just uninterested in being there. And then I walk in the room, and I was like, hey, how you doing? And Detroit style baggy clothes, and then it was like, what are you going to sing? I was like, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And so it's like, all right, let's go. And so started singing. And then as soon as I started singing, Brandon and Valicia sat up, and their eyes got big. It was like, wait a minute. We need you, that's him. And so I didn't think nothing of it. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going anywhere. So then they sent me back, had me come back in and read the sides. So they were like, do you know how to dance? I was like, no, I can club dance though. That was my thing. I was like, I can club dance. I can do whatever you want, but choreography, I've never done it. So there's like, okay, watch the Temptations, watch, their styles, try to familiarize yourself. I said, okay, cool. Week later, they flew me out to New York. I'm, by the way, not knowing this was a Broadway show at the time. And so flew me out to New York. I auditioned, and I sang the same song again. And then I didn't know the proper protocol for auditions, And so, again, I'm in Timberlands. I'm in some baggy jeans. I'm in a big oversized, long sleeve button up. And they're like, you're about to have a dance call. So I'm like, what's a dance call? And so we're in this room with 20 other people, and they're dancing us. And I'm like, I am not prepared for this. I'm sweating, drenched in sweat, big clothes, can't move. And I'm like looking like a chicken with his head cut off. And so then they tell everybody to leave, and then they cut us down to like 5. And so they bring me back in the room and they have me sing again, and I sing again. Then that 5 went down to 3, me and 2 other people. And then Patty Wilcox, our second choreographer, she takes me in the back room and she works with me on choreography for about an hour. And so she's like patient. She was like going step by step. And so she was like, okay, he's teachable. He can pick it up. He knows. And so I go back in, sing, and I'm dancing. And I'm still feeling defeated because I was like, I feel stupid. Leave, go home, fly back to Detroit. Next day, my friend calls like, how did audition go? I was like, I don't think I got it. Like, it's not about to be good. I'm like, whatever. I got other things going on. It's still a, good time. And so phone rings and it's, somebody from Motown. It was like, hi, it's, such and such from Motown, just call, talk to Jawan. I said, well, what it's about? He was like, you got to, got the part of blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, stop playing on my phone. I hang up on him.
What?
Hung up. I hung up on the man and I clicked back over to my friend. I say, yo, why you playing on my phone? I just told you I didn't think I got it. And you got somebody come, calling, playing on my phone. Like, who is that playing? He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you just had somebody call and tell me I got the job and I just told you that didn't think I did good. He's like, that wasn't me. Call them back. And so I'm like, oh, all right. So I hang up, call him back. And, he goes again. He's chipper. I can't remember his name. He's like, hi, it's such and such. I just wanted to call and, say that you got the part, in Motown playing Melvin Franklin. And so I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So he's like, yeah, so you have to move to New York. And I said, okay, move to New York. That's fine. I'm thinking that's just where rehearsals were. We were going to like tour. And so he was like, so you'll be making this, this amount. So I'm like, he's telling me the number. And I was like, every 2 weeks, okay, whatever. Like, calculate. Because I'm like, my rent's this much.
Yeah.
New York's expensive. How I'm going to get around.
No, that's weekly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And so then he was like, after it was all said and done, he was like, so I repeated it back to him. I was like, so, okay, I'm making this every 2 weeks. I was like, no. That's every week. And then I lost it. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, cool. I can deal with that. That's good. So I was like, okay, so when do we start going on tour? He's like, no, it's Broadway. I said, like, Broadway? He's like, yeah. And so that's when, like, I ran around my apartment. I was screaming. And I remember, like, my roommate, he had just gotten off work. He worked the night shift and he sleep during the day. And I ran in his room. I was like, I made it. I was like, I made it. He was like, what the hell are you talking about? I was like, I'm going to Broadway. I'm making this much money a week. And da-da-da-da. And like, I remember calling. I called my friend. She was in South Korea at the time. And, like just bawling on Skype, like crying, like, I can't believe I did it. I'm moving to New York. I'm on Broadway. Like, it's about to be a thing. Like, and that was like the best moment of my life at that time. I'm like, that's where I felt like I got my validation that I was good enough, that all my hard work was paying off because I was like trying so hard and it wasn't nothing hitting the way I wanted to hit. Like I had a good life. I was making consistent money. I was doing the things I wanted to do, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. Yeah. And that's been a dream for mine since I was 12 years old to be on Broadway. And so it was just like, everything was just like coming together. And like, the way I moved out here was the smoothest transition. Like I auditioned 12-12-12, and then I got the actual job the 13th, and then I moved out here January 6th, and I found an apartment. I'm like had my jobs, everything transitioned well. Like I was teaching people how to move that, so that was self-sufficient. The radio show was done because I had left them, like, and so everything just flowed. And like I moved out here, and it was like, here you are on Broadway, and like ensemble, and and you're going to be a Temptation. At the time, they were deciding if they were going to make Temptations a principal. Mm-hmm. And so at first, that's what they were talking about. And so I was like, ooh, I'm about to be a principal on Broadway, and then but then they ended up going somewhere else. But we were still like heavily like marketed because anytime we needed to go and do press events, they sent the Temptations out. So I got to do Kelly and Michael. I got to do Good Morning America. I got to do all these different things and events, because of the group. And so I was like, wow, like I made it, thinking that this was it until it closed.
And so it ran, how long did it run?
It ran for 2.5
Were
years.
you in it the whole time?
Yeah. So I was out for 6 weeks of that run because I injured my shoulder and I had shoulder surgery. And so the whole time I was there.
Okay, so you were there 2.5 years, and then when did Ain't Too Proud start coming into your life?
Ain't Too Proud didn't come into my life till last year. Last January is when I auditioned for Ain't Too Proud.
Really?
Yeah, but I had heard about Ain't Too Proud probably like the year prior.
Yeah.
And my friend Felicia Boswell, who was doing a workshop, a reading at the time with them, she had told me about it. I didn't think too much of it. She was like, she did the reading. She called me immediately after. She was like, Jawan, she was like, I'm doing this reading about the Temptations, and you need to be in this room. And I'm like, oh, okay, Felicia, like, cool. And she's like, no. She was like, I went up to the playwright and told her, the guy that you got playing, Melvin, that ain't it. It's my friend, Jawan. Give me your email. And so she took Dominique's email, and then she was like, I'm going to send you her information so you can email her. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I emailed Dominique, because of my friend. I'm like, hey, my friend Felicia said, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to introduce myself. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Sent it. I never heard anything back from it. So I didn't think anything of it. And so the process went on, and I had been like still hearing. So I was like, well, let me try to get something. Couldn't get an audition for nothing.
Because you didn't have an agent, right?
I didn't have an agent. I had a manager, but like he wasn't like heavily in the theater. And so it was no way to get in there. And I didn't know who was cast because everything was like under wraps.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't tell anything, And so it was, Ephraim and Derek who, once they were going on, were on board with the project. We were at it was like a Memorial Day or Labor Day. It was one of the holidays. We were all at a friend's house. And so Derek was like, hey, are you coming in for Ain't Too Proud? I'm like, no, I couldn't get an audition. You're like, you couldn't get an audition? Man, don't worry about it. We got you. And so probably like 6 months later after Berkeley, once they found out that, the guy wasn't going on forward, they called, was like, get ready. Your audition's coming. And he sent me the script, and Ephraim was like, listen, read the script, listen to the music, in succession, and, tell us what you think about it. And I read the script. I was like, I need to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. And auditioned. And at the time, I'd auditioned for Jesus Christ Superstar in Chicago. And so they were sending me back and forth, and I booked the part as Caiaphas in Jesus Christ Superstar. And my audition for Ain't Too Proud was like 2 days later. And so I was like, I'm going to go in this. And if they don't give it to me, like, whatever, I'm already booked. Like, I'm about to be Caiaphas, and I'm about to be making some bank. So it's cool. So went in, and Mary Sugarman, she came. And after our audition, she was like, you're in a great, position. So what are you going to do? She was like, are you going to take Caiaphas, or are you going to take Melvin? She's like, what you going to do? Because you can't do both. And I'm like, you sure? I'm like, I'm going to try to make it work. Let's me being greedy. So I did that on my lunch break while working for Broadway.com.
Right. Because you were in the call center.
Yeah, I was on the call center answering phone calls.
Yeah.
Getting in trouble by people, would call, and they get, attached to my voice, or like fall in love, and then be like, only specifically ask for me, or, just like, you just sound so good. Like, just continue to talk to me. Like, you just make me feel happy. I was just like, ma'am, there is a queue. I would love to sit here and talk to you, but you are now done. Have a great day. But that was fun. That, taught me a lot during that process, because that was my in-between time
Mm-hmm.
of a working artist in every way.
Survival job.
Yeah. Trying to just, pay bills and learning to still be able to maneuver in New York and still be having a life that was close, like Broadway adjacent,
Mm-hmm.
that allowed me to, still partake and do things and not be too far away from my dream. And so that was a great job for me.
Did you did you think that? I mean, you sort of just fell into Memphis. It sounds like not even knowing what you were auditioning for. You thought it was a tour, not a Broadway show.
Yeah, I
So,
thought
so
it was a
yes, you
tour.
come to Broadway, 2.5 years on Broadway, and then you're done. Did you kind of have to go through a reality check, or were you just like, "Where's my next
The
thing?"
biggest one.
Yeah.
The biggest one. And it was good and bad for me because going into that to Motown, I checked off every dream goal that I ever had imagined for myself, you know? And so that never comes around, not like that. And so I was faced with what's next? What do? I did everything I ever wanted to do in my life. You know, I've met everybody I wanted to meet on my list. I've seen the places like I wanted to be. So there's nothing else for me to do. I should go back home, you know? And then I went to LA for a while and I was doing like a workshop and one of the guy, and I was like telling my testimony and saying, and the guy was like, make another dream bigger than the one you had. Like continue to dream. And I was like, you're right. Like I am. And that's what I'm going to do. But that was my crossroads. And so then from there, I got to travel internationally. I went to South Africa for 3 weeks and taught there. And then, went to London and got to, be on Virgin America's first, flight from London to Detroit and like do a flash mob there. That was great, And so I saw these opportunities when I allowed myself to dream bigger and think outside of just smaller things. And then now this is another dream that's being checked off because now I have a litany of dreams that it's going to be every, after one check, okay, next. Okay, keep going, continue to do it. But I also hit that drought of, I don't know how to, no one ever taught me once a Broadway show closes, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
So I had that moment of, I don't know, I'd never applied for unemployment because I've always worked, and then I never not knew how to I never not ate because I always had family. So I would go to grandma's house, I would go to cousin's house, I would go to auntie's house. But now it's just me, and my rent back home was $300. So if I didn't have a job at the time,
geez.
like, I'm okay. But not having a job out here and have to pay New York rent, forget about it. And so it was just it was a struggle. It was a reality check for me. It was like, okay, you're grown, one, and then two, like, just hustle. And so from there, I was going to audition those open calls, audition without an agent. Going to the equity building every morning, waking up, going to the equity, agent audition calls and signing up online and doing all those and just trying to get my face in front of different casting directors and meeting people and networking and really, really grinding and busting my butt. And so that was it was a lot. And then that's when I came to Broadway.com. I was like, okay, Jawan, you need to have some consistent money flowing so that you can supply the dream that you're trying to create for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when that came.
Well, what was it? Andre de Shield said, the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next.
Listen.
Yeah.
That's no truer words have been spoken.
That is a wise man right there. Did you meet Otis Williams when you were doing Memphis, or did you meet him for the first time in doing Ain't Too Proud?
It's Motown.
Motown, yeah.
I met Otis during Motown, but it was so fast because Otis, he came with the Temptations and he didn't get to see me perform. So Otis had never he didn't get to see me perform at Motown because right before I sprained my calf, and that's random and weird. And the PT guy was working on me between shows and like it was hurting so bad. He was like, you should not do the show. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do the show. And so I went downstairs. I called out. Went in the office. I was like, I'm not doing the show tonight. And when I went downstairs, this hurts my heart every time I tell the story because I went downstairs and I was sitting down and, half hour goes. And it was like, at this performance, Jawan's out, such and such is on, hey, after the show, Otis Williams and the Temptations are here in the audience. Come backstage. And also, Brandy Norwood is in the audience. She wants to say hello. I was mad. I was big mad because Brandy is one of my favorite singers of all time. It has been since I was so young. And then to know that the Temptations were there on the night and I had just called out. And so, I was like, oh, I can do the show. I can do it. It was like, no, it's too late. Like, we already made the switch. Like, just sit down. I was like, okay, well, can I at least stay and watch the show? So they're like, you can stay and watch the show. So I watched the show, and then afterwards I met him, but it was so brief and so fast. Like, he don't even remember. It was just so much stuff going on. And so that was the first and only time I had met him prior to that. But then Dennis Edwards had came to the Family and Friends run at Motown, and he was the one. And he's also one of my favorite Temptations. He was my all-time favorite Temptations. And he and I talked, and he cornered us the whole night. And he just gave us a litany of just stories on stories on stories on, like, how this record became to be, and what was going on when he was, they were singing this record, and what Berry Gordy, and Norma Whitfield was going through, and Smokey, and then them touring, and how he felt, and then him leaving the group and then coming back to the group and how he feels now. Like, it was just so much, and I was just like soaking it in, like, oh my God, like, this is Dennis Edwards. The Dennis Edwards, like the singingest man in the world, like Dennis Edwards, singingest. Like, he was just a joy, and just like so much love and pouring out. He was like, I want to help you out. He was like, we got to come back. Y'all got to go. Me and my wife going to take you out to dinner. And, his daughter would come, and his daughter still keeps in touch on Instagram, and it's been great. So, but then when his passing was unfortunate, but I definitely, I take that conversation, and I'll never forget it.
Way Too Proud is such an absolute fun show to watch. I mean, the history of the Temps in general is fascinating and stuff that I didn't know. But the show, the energy level and whatnot, it's incredible. Does the audience sing along with you? Do you hear the audience singing every night?
Absolutely. Some more than others. Last night was a prime example. Like, we couldn't get through My Girl. Like, Ephraim comes out in a little reveal. And then as soon as, dun, 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 once the audience goes up, and then they just go for it. It's like it turns into a karaoke. And then I was like, let me, like, focus, Jawan, remember what you're singing. Because they will take you out. They're singing. They're so excited, just to be there. And just the joy that this music, sparks in so many people, of all colors, is what I love about it most. To be a part of, this legacy of and genre of music that just, inspired a nation is incredible.
And do you do stage door? Do you get a lot of stage door feedback?
I do.
Interesting.
I get a lot of stage door feedback. A lot. Mainly the stage door feedback that I get is, say something in my ear. Say something in my ear. Come on, just talk to me in your deep voice. Talk to me in your deep voice. Or I've been asked to record voicemails. I've been asked to do an intro, like video intros on somebody's Instagram. I've been asked to, the other day I got asked to sign a phone case and then her chest. And then it's so much. It's so much, but they're crazy. It's all love, though. It's all love. And like, people come and they cry and they sit there and they're like, thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for telling the story. Thank you for, bringing truth to the character and Melvin Franklin. I remember, and like, I get the I remembers a lot, and it's always good, and it's appreciative, and it lets me know that I'm doing my job correctly. It's the highest form of compliment when someone they can't see the actor, but they see the character, which I think it's just, the greatest form of flattery that I can ever receive. So.
Yeah. I guess it's good because it's a character people like. I think it was Anna Gunn from Breaking Bad. Walter White's, or Bryan Cranston's wife, actor wife. She like, people would be mean to her on the street when they see her. I remember reading. Yeah, it was her. I was reading an article about this, that people would be mean to her because they would treat her like her character.
Yeah.
And she got mean at the end of the show,
Oh, she sure did.
Right?
Oh, she sure
like
did. But she was scorned.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston had scorned her by the end, and he had did her dirty.
I think I just triggered. Did I trigger you?
Oh, well, I love that. I love Breaking Bad, first of all. Love Breaking Bad. Love Bryan Cranston too. But he did her dirty.
Yeah. I love that show. That was one of the shows that I watch religiously. But I'm a nerd too. So Battlestar Galactica, another one that I love. Working with Derek, Ephraim, Jeremy, James. Like I know Jeremy just left the show, but like backstage, on stage, you guys go through so much together. What's it like backstage with all of you?
It's the same. We just goofy. We go through so much with each other. Like, it's definitely a brotherhood. It's one that I definitely appreciate and I love because I don't have brothers of my own, and so to be able to look to them for support, to love and understanding and listening ears, and to be a part of each other's lives and every every turn. Now I wouldn't see myself not being their friend ever outside. Once the show ends, or as Jeremy's gone, we have talked every day. It's just a great brotherhood. We definitely love each other, and that's no lie. I just love them. I love every single one of them individually and collectively as a group.
Yeah. You guys gel so well together, and it's such a joy to see you on stage. And then I want to talk real quick about the choreography too, because you said that you're not a dancer.
Oh, he's not.
So was it tough for you to learn the choreography? And I heard that you did a split in the audition. But you don't do it on stage.
I don't do it on stage. And I actually called Derek after I did that split and cussed him out on his voicemail. I think he said he still has it because he saved the voice because he said he laughed so hard at it. Because I called him because I went into the dance call, and they did a little combination and Superstar, I Can't Get Next to You, and The Ball of Confusion, and they like merged into this like one dance number. And because David Ruffin does the splits, they wanted us to do a half split. And Edgar Godina, who is our associate choreographer, he did the splits. And I said, okay, who's going to do that? He was like, you are. I said, no, I'm not. I don't do the splits. I've never done a split. He was like, well, try it. I was like, well, all right. And I did it. And I got it each time. And then the next day when I went to the final callbacks, I was like, I have to hit this split hard because I want this job. And I hit it. I was sore for weeks. And I remember calling Derek. I was on the train platform. I was like, you didn't tell me that I had to do splits in the audition. I was like, when have you ever seen The Temptation do a split? Melvin Franklin ain't never did no split. So I was like, we ain't doing that. We're not doing that. I was like, call me back. So he called me back laughing so hard. It was like, oh man, no, they just, they make everybody do this. I was like, you should have warned me before, But it was an interesting thing. But then I had 6-week intensive right after because I couldn't, they had already did the show prior to me joining. So it was kind of like catch up. And so I worked 9 to 5, like a day job, learning these choreography, the choreography. And Esther Antoine was our, dance captain, and Edgar, they came in and worked with me every day. And now like looking back at the videos versus, I said I was going to do like a throwback Thursday from where I started to where I am on stage, because I think it's going to be really, really interesting. People are going to laugh and going to love it. So I wanted to watch out for that one.
Oh yeah. All right. So you were in the Get Down too, which I'm so upset they canceled that.
Oh, it was so good.
It was.
It was so good.
So you were Easy Mike.
Yes.
In the Get Down.
Yes.
So did your manager get you that role?
My manager got me that one, yeah.
You said he wasn't into theater, or is it?
No, he was, they're mostly television film.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting, everything always, I got that by chance. I didn't audition for that character. I auditioned for another character, one of the main 3 or 4. And so I went in for that audition, and at the time they had wrote a new character. Easy Mike is actually Grandmaster Flash's best friend. And so he said, I want to have my best friend in the show. So we need to put him in the show. And so then they went through pictures, and
I mean, the real Grandmaster Flash said that.
Yeah, the real Grandmaster Flash said that. And so the picture of Easy Mike and I resemble. And so that's how I ended up getting chosen to play Easy Mike. Because I remember when I went to casting, it was like, we're looking for somebody who looks like him. And so we started going through, it was like, Jawan looks just like him. We want him. And so I was set to fly out to Detroit because my grandfather was getting married that weekend. And so I was trying to go out there 2 days because I was my grandfather's like best man. And my manager calls like, Jawan, where are you going? I was like, you know where I'm going. I'm going to Detroit for my grandfather's wedding. Why are you calling me at 12 o'clock at night? He's like, so you might be on the get down. I say, I might be or I am. He's like, you might be. They're talking about it now. Casting just emailed me to see if you're available. I was like, well, I'm getting on the flight at 6 o'clock in the morning. Call me back, And so he's like, okay. So they went through. And so they pushed it through. The network approved me. And then they sent me the sides that night. And
that morning, before 6 a.m.
Yes. So I got the sides probably like 2, 3 in the morning. And I was like, how am I about to do? Like, okay, cool. Because I was filming that next day too. And so came in, filmed the scene. And that was the first time I met Mamadou, who played Grandmaster Flash. And he had that was a brand new scene. And so he had got like pages and pages of just like a monologue, just talking. And so, I'm just coming in saying my little 4 lines, 5 lines or whatever. And then, but he's like doing work and they have to go to the next show. And like, so we spent all night, filming that scene. And then we didn't get finished. And so then the director comes like, so I'll see you on Monday too, right? I'm like, yeah. So I flew home the next day, married my grandfather that morning. That night, flew back to Detroit and had to be on set. And I was like, okay, this filming can't go past Tuesday because Tuesday I was set to go to Cancun to marry my best friend. And I was his best man too. So it was 2 weddings back to back. And so I was like, it just can't go over. It just can't. Because I'm going to have to say no if, I've been planning this for a while. Like my grandfather was fine. And so it ended up working out. And so filmed the scene, finished it. And then that was December. April comes and they're like, well, the Get Down wants you back again. I said, oh, I'm back for another scene. It was like, no, they're reshooting the same scene. So I got paid twice to shoot the same scene that they still did not finish. In the TV show. And so the scene that actually ended up cutting down to was nothing that we had went back and filmed. Like it cut off so much. It was like 6 cameras, shots, and I had all this stuff and it just got cut down to nothing. I was like, ooh, TV is brutal. They're brutal.
Yep, it always is.
But it was a fun time. I met so many great people. Yaya, who's now doing everything, from Aquaman to just everything. It was just, I just met so many great people from that set.
Well, we're going to wrap up the podcast here.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to ask you the 3 standard closing questions that we ask everybody. So number 1, what motivates you?
What motivates me is my family. Making them proud and always knowing that anytime I go outside that I'm representing them.
All right. Number 2, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people now starting out down a similar path?
Ooh, just don't be so silly. Don't, make sure your eye is open and don't trust people, but always be, just be very careful on the people that you let into your life and the things that you get into because it can lead you down a potentially dark path.
That sounds like you speak from experience.
Yes. But you can get out of it.
Okay, so if you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Martin.
The TV show?
The TV show, Martin.
Martin Lawrence?
Oh, you want the TV show or a Broadway show or like a show?
We'll go with Martin.
Okay, yeah, Martin. I love Martin. I would laugh all day at Martin. Martin and the Fresh Prince.
All right, we can find you on Twitter, Jawan Jackson 4. I guess there were 3 other Jawan Jacksons on Twitter.
You know what? Now I got Jawan Jackson.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's now just Jawan Jackson because one of the people from Instagram came and saw the show. And then after the show, she hit me up. She was like, you want to just be Jawan Jackson? I was like, yeah, but it wasn't available when I got it. She was like, don't worry about it. I'll give it to you. So now I'm just Jawan Jackson because I guess she bumped out whoever Jawan Jackson
Sweet.
was.
All right. So Twitter.
So that's favor.
All right. At Jawan Jackson on Twitter and Jawan Jackson on Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah. So visit thetheaterpodcast.com to get more episodes and theaterpodcast.com/Patreon to show your support. We are on Instagram and Twitter at theater_podcast. Of course, please rate, leave a review. This is produced by Jillian Hockman, edited by Matthew Hendershot. Thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And Jawan, thank you for being here. This has
thanks
been
for having
wonderful.
me, man.
Give me a deep voice outro here. Lead us out.
Hey, y'all listening to the Theater Podcast with your boy Jawan and Allen. Tune in next time. See ya.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.